أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسوله سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. بارك الله فيكم. So, my name is Hamzah. I came from Chicago in the United States of America. MashaAllah. Hold the mic closer. We have a little bit of noise from the street, alhamdulillah, mashallah. That's good. So my name is Hamzah. I came from Chicago in the United States of America in order to share essentially about what? About Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I studied in the University of Washington in Seattle. I have a degree in biochemistry, and I, after that, went to pursue study of the deen. So many people, when they see me, they're very surprised that I know how to speak English. But alhamdulillah, mashallah, even though I look like a villager, and I actually am a villager, but I do have a little bit of experience outside of the village. And I hope that rather than worrying about judging what a person looks like, we should be people who listen and judge based on what a person is saying. Is the content good or not? And let the content speak for itself. So hopefully if something I say is of use, that will be a better introduction than me speaking about myself. And if it's not of use, even if I give the most fabulous introduction with the degrees from the best universities and the most high-sounding credentials, then they mean nothing. So the talk is about what? It's about a very strange topic, which is dealing with the fact that so many people in the entire world, not just the Muslim world, are dealing with a crisis of faith, that they don't know if they can believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala anymore. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself deals with this issue in his book. أَوَلَمْ يَرَ الْإِنسَانُ أَنَّا خَلَقْنَاهُ مِن نُطْفَةٍ فَإِذَا هُوَ خَصِيمٌ مُبِينٌ وَضَرَبَ لَنَا مَثَلًا وَنَسِيَ خَلْقَهُ قَالَ مَن يُحْيِي الْعِظَامَ وَهِيَ رَمِيمٌ قل يحييها الذي أنشأها أول مرة وهو بكل خلق عليم. Allah Ta'ala asks in his book, have you not seen insan? We created him from a clot of blood. We created him from nothing. The clot of blood that every human being is created from is microscopic. You can't even see it with your eyes. That's how insignificant is it. فَإِذَا هُوَ خَصِيمٌ مُبِينٌ. And after that act of creating a human being from a clot of blood, the person comes out and tries to have a debate with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Tries to be an adversary of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Tries to mix it up with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as it were. He says, who is going to bring these bones back to life after they are dust? And this is actually something that happened to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, possibly on multiple occasions. That the mushrikeen of Quraysh, someone or another from amongst them, they took a old and brittle bone of a dead animal and crushed it in their hands, and literally it becomes dust. He says, who's going to bring this back to life? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, the one who created it in the first place will bring it back to life, and he has all knowledge of all creation. Literally, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in another place in the Quran says, وَهُوَ أَهْوَنُ عَلَيْهِ. The second time is easier than the first time. What's more difficult, to create the original or to create the knockoff or the copy? The original is the one that's difficult to create. Allah ta'ala created everything the first time, and to create it again by logical progression. It doesn't require a person even to be a Muslim. Logically, they should understand that the second creation is easier than the first one. Now, this hal, or this state that Allah Ta'ala described about a human being, the state of khusuma, that a person is a disputant with Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, this state characterizes the time that we live in. And so, what the problem is not so much a rational problem with Allah Ta'ala's existence, but it's a type of drunkenness that a human being has based on their own comfort. Because not everything a human being does is logical. Many things are emotional. So you'll see this with a person, that person, when they're in a position of need of you, they treat you one way, and when they don't need you anymore, they treat you a different way. Even the best of people are like this sometimes. And this is the same condition we have with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So let's all take a pause from the ni'mah and the blessing Allah ta'ala gave us, that we have food to eat, we have air to breathe, we have water to drink, we have all of the things that we need. And we feel like we don't need Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala anymore because He gave us these things. Let's take a pause from that feeling and go back to a very abstract basis that's not personal. A very abstract basis that's not personal. It doesn't rely on our own personal experiences, but relies on something a little bit more philosophical. So we start with, and I apologize if this is not the most engaging talk in the world, or it requires you to think about things a little bit, because I'm not an entertainer. There are many people whose talks are much more entertaining than mine are. You can find their talks on YouTube and things like that and knock yourself out if that's what you're interested in. I'm going to apologize if you have to think a little bit about what we're talking about. So we go back to what? We go back to rational philosophy. We go back to logic. What is logic? Logic is that set of things that every human being agrees on. If you're Muslim, if you're Christian, if you're Jewish, if you're Hindu, if you're Buddhist, everybody agrees on certain things. And that certain set of things are known as what? They're known as logic, or mantiq in Arabic. The first person who famously codified those rules that everybody believes in and everybody accepts as true is a Greek philosopher by the name of Aristotle. That's why generally you'll see that classical logic, they call it Aristotelian logic, because it has to do with the documentation of Aristotle. He's not the one who invented it. He's just the first person who wrote down the rules in a way that then could be easily taught to other people. And the point of having logic in the past was what? The point was there are so many different people in the world that have so many different viewpoints, and when they disagree on things, they just argue with one another and they clash and say, I'm not talking to you anymore. There should be certain common things that they can agree upon, and then they can use that language as a medium to converse with one another. So for example, if you're talking about God with a Christian, if you quote the Quran to him, the Quran is meaningless to him. If a Christian quotes the New Testament to a Jew, the New Testament is meaningless to him. If a Jew quotes the Torah to a Hindu, the Torah has very little meaning to him. So we have to have something in the middle that all of us agree upon that we can use as a way of discussing things with one another. So the old logicians, they talked about three sources of knowledge. There are three sources of knowledge in the world. The first source of knowledge is what? Is empirical knowledge. What does empirical knowledge mean? It's a very fancy word, meaning the knowledge of the senses. What you can see with your own eyes. What you can taste, what you can smell, what you can touch, what you can hear, what you can count. That type of knowledge is what? It's empirical knowledge. So for example, if you go in the middle of the day at Dhuhr time, it's not raining, it's a clear day, and somebody asks, what is the sun? And you just point and you say, that's the sun. Now if somebody asks, what's your dalil that that's the sun? What's your proof? This is a sign that their mind is not working. Why? Because you've given them an empirical proof. If they don't believe their own eyes, then there's nothing you can do for that person. Science is essentially a way of gaining maximum benefit from empirical knowledge. What is science? Science is you have an idea and then you go and observe in real life, does that idea happen or not? Is that idea work or not? So I have an idea, for example. My idea is that Panadol helps a person who has a headache to feel better. What will I do? I will take 20 people. 10 of them I'll give them a sugar pill which has no Panadol in it at all. And 10 of them I'll give them a pill that has the Panadol in it when they have a headache. And I'll count how many of the first group feel better, how many of the second group feel better. I'll observe and count. If they can tell me that they feel better, and we can count that there's a higher group of people in the second group that feel better than the first, then we have an empirical proof that the Panadol is effective as a medicine. Science is what? Science is essentially a way of getting maximum mileage out of empirical knowledge. Now I want you to realize something or appreciate something, which is what? Which is empirical knowledge. You don't even have to be a human being in order to understand it. What do I mean? Animals understand it as well. If a person were to take a dog, like the paw of a dog, and hold a lighter underneath it, the dog also knows that the fire is hot. Why? Because empirical knowledge is not something that only human beings have. Empirical knowledge is what? It's something that we even share with animals. Even plants, they're sensitive to certain things. A plant is, the biochemistry of a plant is different when the sun is out, and it's different when it's dark outside. Why? Because they can sense things in the world around them. So the first type of knowledge is what? Empirical knowledge. It's the knowledge of the senses. The second type of knowledge that the logicians talked about was what? It's rational knowledge. What is rational knowledge? Again, it's the logic that we talked about from before. Certain principles that everybody agrees on. What are certain principles everybody agrees on? One principle, they're very simple things. So for example, if I have 3 stones in front of me, stone A, stone B, and stone C, and I have a scale. If I weigh stone A and stone B and the weight is equal, and I weigh stone B and stone C and the weight is equal, then through logical means, what do I know with regards to the relationship of the weight of stone A and stone C? They should be equal as well. If I put them in the scale, then I verify that they're equal through empirical knowledge. But I don't need to do that. Why? Because rational knowledge tells me without having to weigh them that they're going to be equal. What else is rational knowledge? Rational knowledge is simple concepts like the idea that part of something cannot be bigger than the whole of something. Someone says, SubhanAllah, you don't have to fly from America to Kuala Lumpur to teach me these things. Well, the fact of the matter is there's like almost 2 billion people in the world that don't understand this, at least. I mentioned this in the radio station as well. We had a program in the radio station that there was a hotel I stayed in Dayton, Ohio, which is a very strange part of America for anyone who's been. You used to live in America. Would you agree Dayton, Ohio is a strange place, right? So I stayed in a Red Lion in Dayton, Ohio, and when I was checking out, the white woman behind the counter, she goes, what all are you? I said, what do you mean? Like, where was I born? Where did my father come from? No, what's your religion? I said, my religion is Islam. She's like, I'm like, like on TV. I said, don't worry though, we're not going to harm you. We're good people. The TV is all bogus. We're nice people. So she says, what do you guys believe? I said, it's a very simple religion. We believe in one God, and we believe that God communicates with this creation through his prophets, and we believe that good people are rewarded by God and bad people are punished by him. It's really that simple. And so she says, well, what do you say about Jesus? I said, we respect him. He's a prophet of God. He's one of the people who brought God's commandments to mankind. She said, but do you worship him? Do you worship him? Is he the son of God? I said, we don't worship him. She said, why don't you worship him? I said, look, Jesus was a person, right? He lived inside the world, right? She says, yeah. I said, look, God created the world, right? She said, yeah. I said, can a carpenter build a table and the carpenter is also part of the table that he built? She goes, no, that's not possible. But I still believe in Jesus. I said, that's good for you. You keep doing that. We think these things are common sense, but they're not. So logic is these common set of rules, which is what? Simple things like the whole of something has to be bigger than the part of something. That 3 is bigger than 2. These types of things, I cannot teach the entire mantiq, nor do I want to or need to right now. But the idea is logic is those set of things that common assumptions that you don't need to empirically verify. You can figure them out, right? So you've seen a can of Pepsi. What's inside the can of Pepsi? Pepsi. You don't need to empirically verify it. Every time you open a can of Pepsi, there's been Pepsi inside of it. Next time you see a can of Pepsi, if the thought comes into your mind, well, this might be something else, it's probably not something else. It's probably the same thing it was every single time before when you did it. This is the gift of what? Of rational knowledge. If we didn't have rational knowledge, then a person would wonder what's inside the can until they tasted every single can, and then you cannot, life completely breaks down. The third type of knowledge that the mantiqiyun, the rational philosophers, they talked about was something that they refer to in the Arabic mantiq terminology as al-ilm al-wad'i. That knowledge which doesn't belong to this world but was placed in this world from somewhere else. And we talk about it in English as revelation. It's wahi. So atheists, they don't believe in revelation. They say this third type doesn't exist. This is completely something, fairy tale that you people have made up. We don't believe in it at all. And the people of Islam, the people of Deen, whether it be Islam or the people of Christianity or of other religions, we say no. We believe that there is a certain type of knowledge that's neither empirical, you cannot get it through observation, nor is it rational, that you can get it through thinking about things, but it is placed in this world from another realm, and we agree on it. Okay? So, if you want to prove to an atheist that God exists, can you use that third type of knowledge? No, because they're not going to accept it. So what do you have to do? You have to use one of the first two, either empirical knowledge or rational knowledge. Now, if a person who here's like gone to university before, right? Anyone? No one? University? Right? When you go to university, I assume even in Muslim countries, that there are probably many professors that are secular or not super religious, or they're atheists, but they just don't want to admit it publicly. And so they kind of mock religion, and they think of it as a type of superstition. In America, many of the university professors, especially in the hard sciences, they're very open about their atheism. So what will they ask you? They'll ask you a very simple question. They'll say, you believe in God? Yes. Can you see God? No. Can you touch God? No. Can you taste God? No. Can you hear God? No. Then he doesn't exist. He's your imaginary friend. They say things like this. And oftentimes our kids, because we spend so much time teaching them mathematics and geometry and chemistry and physics and all these other things, which are good, we should teach them these things, but not at the expense of deen. We don't teach them how to think. So when they come in front of a professor and they ask a question like that, they're left without any sort of answer, and now all of a sudden their faith is compromised. The izzah and the dignity of Islam is compromised in front of somebody who's a mulhid, essentially an atheist. So tell me something. Allah Ta'ala says in His book, He says, "La tudrikul absar wa huwa yudrikul absar." He describes Himself as what? Allah is the one that the sight can never see Him, even though He sees all of the sights. The vision can never see Him, even though He sees all visions. So if we're going to prove Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala exists, is it going to be an empirical proof? No. Allah Ta'ala says in His own book, He says what? He says, لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٍ. He says, وَلَمْ يَكُنْ لَهُ كُفُوًا أَحَدٍ. There's no one like unto Him. There's no one, لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٍ literally means there's no one like anything like Him. You cannot create an analogy for Allah Ta'ala, nor can you make a set of analogies that will bridge you to understanding Allah Ta'ala's reality. This is the text of the Quran itself. This is the deen of the Muslims. So if you're going to give a kafir a proof of the existence of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, can it be empirical? No. If it is an empirical proof, that itself takes you out of Islam. Because Allah Ta'ala Himself said what? You won't be able to see Him, you won't be able, you're not going to be, there's nothing like anything unto Him that you're going to be able to see, taste, touch, smell, anything like that. So what did the ulama of Aqidah say is the proof that Allah exists? And I hear this from people all the time. They say what? They say, well, there's no proof that God exists. You just have to accept it on faith. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. This is not what our ulama said ever. This is not true. It's wrong. And it's very harmful for a person's iman to say that. There is proof that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala exists, and it's very elegantly summarized by the mutakallimun, by the ulama of Aqidah as حَاجَةُ كُلِّ مَخْلُوقٍ لِلصَّانِعِ. The need for everything that exists in the world of causes and effects to have something to cause it to exist. So for example, okay, I have this lid. Ibrahim, look at that pillar right there. If I throw this lid at him while he's not looking, and then he says, why did you do that? Hamzah, why did you do that? I'll say, I didn't do it, it happened on its own. Will he believe me? Will he? No. Why? Because nothing in this universe happens on its own. Why? Because nothing in this universe happens on its own. Everything happens because it's an effect that is made to happen by a cause. Now tell me, if a small lid cannot fly at Ibrahim's head on its own, nobody in the masjid will believe it can do it on its own. Then how can everything happen on its own from nothing? Rationally, it's impossible. Rationally, it's what? It's impossible. And it's very interesting, if you look at the history of ideas amongst human beings, of philosophy, there were always people who believed in God and there are always people who didn't believe in God. The reason they believe and don't believe has something to do with the heart. It's not a rational issue. It has to do with the heart, the subject of which is something called tasawwuf or tazkiyah. It's a discussion for a different majlis. It's a different topic altogether. But what happens? Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what did he say? He said that there's a ala fil jasadi mudghatun. إذا صلحت صلحت الجسد كله وإذا فسدت فسدت الجسد كله ألا وهي القلب أو كما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام. That there's a morsel of flesh inside of the body. If that morsel of flesh is salih, if it works right, then the whole rest of the body works right. And if it is fasid, if it's spoiled, if it's rotten, then the entire body becomes rotten. What is it? It's the heart. It's what? It's not the mind. The mind is very important and very powerful. And as Muslims, we have to use our brains. We have to. The person who has a high maqam with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cannot be a stupid person, cannot be an imbecile. Intelligence will take you further with Allah ta'ala than stupidity will, and Allah ta'ala gives to everybody because of His generosity. But what is in charge? It's not the mind, it's the heart. The heart will make a decision and then the mind will serve the heart. So if a person is very intelligent, if the heart's bad, they'll use their mind in order to justify evil. And if the heart is good, they'll use the mind in order to justify good. So what happens? Some people don't want to believe in Allah Ta'ala. It's a decision that the heart made, not the mind. And some people want to believe in Allah Ta'ala. It's a decision that the heart made, not the mind. The mind only follows what the lead given by the heart is. So there have been people who believe in Allah Ta'ala. There are people who say, no, we don't believe in God. The people who believe in Allah said what? From the very beginning, the mind always said what? It said that all of this cannot happen on its own because nothing happens on its own. It requires someone to have made it happen. What is the jawab? What is the answer classically that atheistic philosophers used to give to this argument? They said, well, maybe the world just kind of existed always forever and it just goes again and again in circles and cycles. Does this sound familiar? This is very similar to what? It's very similar to the cosmology and the belief of Hinduism and Buddhism and things like that. That what? People are born, they die, they're reborn again, they die. And time is like that also. Time goes in cycles as well. That the universe is created and destroyed again and again and again. Now, let me point something out to you. Okay? Rationally, remember we talked about rationality? Rationally, when I say that everything has to have come from somewhere, that is a rationally sound idea. Okay? When you say the universe happens in cycles again and again and again, that's rationally not a sound idea. That requires blind faith. There's no proof for it. That requires what? Blind faith. There's no proof for it. It's an assumption that people make. It's an irrational assumption, actually. Anyone here studied mantiq or logic in university or at madrasa? No one? Yes. So this is actually a rational fallacy. This is a sign that when you study logic, this is a sign that your reasoning is wrong because it invokes something called infinite regress, what they refer to as dawr musalsal. So for example, if someone asks me, what's a statue? You know statue, right? What's a statue? I say, statue is something that stands on top of a pedestal. And I ask, okay, what's a pedestal? They say a pedestal is something that the statue sits on top of. I didn't define anything at all. It's just a circle. The words statue and pedestal have no meaning anymore. This is the same thing. They say, oh, well, the universe existed on its own and it just goes through cycles again and again. This is something, tell me, where's your proof? Can you show me that this happens? Can I hear it happen? Can I taste it happen? Can I touch it happening? No, this is your imaginary friend. Why? Because you didn't make friends with Allah, so you have to look for a friend where? In the dunya. Understand something, okay? Atheism is not what you believe in. Atheism means no belief in God. Atheism is not what you believe in, it's what you don't believe in. What does an atheist believe in then? Atheist believes in the dunya. You know how we say, this is what our ulama used to say for so many centuries. They say Allah is wajibul wujud. Allah Ta'ala's existence is necessary. What do the atheists say? They say that the dunya is wajibul wujud. The existence of the dunya is necessary. Our mutakallimun said Allah created the world because He wanted to. There's no need to create the world. If He didn't want to, He wouldn't have created it. He created because He wanted to. It was a possibility and He did it. The dunya doesn't need to exist. Atheists said, no, dunya needs to exist. What do we believe about Allah Ta'ala? We believe Allah Ta'ala is azali, meaning that He existed forever. These people, what do they believe? They believe that dunya existed forever. What do we believe about Allah Ta'ala? Allah is al-baqi, jalla wa ala. He's the one who will exist forever. What do they say? They say the dunya will exist forever. All of the attributes that we give to Allah, what do they give the attribute to? The dunya. Understand something in this one moment. There is a maxim that the ulama coined, which is what? Al-kufru millatun wahida. All of kufr is the same millah. So the people who said, I don't believe in God, the only yaqeen is in the dunya, that person worships the dunya. The person who believes in the reincarnation and cycles and all of this, they say that the dunya is the one that's necessary. God is not necessary. What do they believe in the dunya? Buddhism, if you study Buddhism academically, it doesn't require a belief in God. Its teachings don't tell you about God. They tell you about your own existence and they tell you about the world. God is irrelevant. The understanding of Allah Ta'ala is irrelevant to that philosophy. Look at Christianity. What is Christianity? They said that God is born in the flesh. They took the idea of the Torah and of the Anbiya alayhimus salam and they twisted it. Ibn Kathir, the famous mufassir and muhaddith, he said something. He said that if someone told you that the Romans became Christian, don't believe them. And if someone tells you that the Christians became Romans, you can believe them. Why? Because that same Hinduism, they made Christianity into the same thing. What did they do? They took Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who is transcendent above His creation, they brought Him into the dunya. They said that the table built itself. The carpenter didn't build the table built itself. They said God is part of the table. It doesn't work that way. So tell me something. Whose civilization is dominant over the world right now? It's the Nasara. It's the Christians. It's a fact. They believe that Allah Ta'ala is a part of this world. There's no coincidence that the civilization they started is the most materialistic civilization in the entire history of mankind. Why is it materialistic? Why is it materialistic? Your aqidah affects the way you behave and the way you think. They believe that this material world has the sifat, it has the attributes of Allah Ta'ala, it's sacred to them. That's why they worship it. That's why they worship wealth, that's why they worship money, that's why this is what they consider to be good in this world. Literally in America, what is Protestant work ethic, Protestant theology? It's the idea that if you're a good person, God will give you money, and if you're a bad person, God will make you poor. This is a belief, this is an aqidah of Christians in America, and even now that people have stopped believing in God, this is an aqidah all of them keep inside of their hearts. What does Allah Ta'ala say in His book? He says, فَأَمَّا الْإِنسَانُ إِذَا مَبْتَلَاهُ رَبُّهُ فَأَكْرَمَهُ وَنَعَّمَهُ فَيَقُولُ رَبِّيَ أَكْرَمَنِ. Look at insan, the insan that Allah give them money. He says, oh look, my Lord loves me, He honors me, akramani, He made my ikram. وَأَمَّا إِذَا مَبْتَلَاهُ فَقَدَرَ عَلَيْهِ رِزْقَهُ فَيَقُولُ رَبِّيَ أَهَانَنِي. And the one who's poor, قَدَرَ عَلَيْهِ رِزْقَهُ, Allah Ta'ala made his rizq small. That person says, oh look, my Lord humiliated me, He hates me. What does Allah Ta'ala say about these two statements? Very simple answer, kalla. Kalla means no, it's all wrong. The dunya means nothing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The dunya means what? Nothing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If it meant something to Allah Ta'ala, there's a hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If this dunya meant to Allah Ta'ala what the wing of a small insect means to you and me, He would not even give a sip of water to a kafir, much less all of this wealth. But it means nothing to him, that's why He gives it to them. That's why Allah may love that person, but He doesn't give him much dunya. Why? Because some people in this existence, they worship the dunya. And some people worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The one who Allah wants for himself, why is he going to make that person chase after the dunya? There are some people Allah gives both wealth and he gives them iman. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam was given this choice. Where's Sayyid Abdullah? Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam was given a choice that you can be a nabi like a king like Dawood and Sulaiman alayhi salam, or you can be nabi like a faqir. Which one did he choose? There's good khair in both of them. Which one did he choose? He chose to be a faqir. Why? Because that's a God someone else worships. He doesn't even want anything to do with it. He only wants to be for who? Allah. Imagine a man has 2 wives. Imagine if a man has 2 wives. If he wants to make one of them feel good, what he has to do? He has to say that, yeah, this other one, I'm not interested in her. You're the one I love. You're the beautiful one. You're the one who captured my heart, or whatever. Now, when you look at the history of ideas, this is why the theory of evolution was such a big moral boost for atheism. Why? Anyone studied biology? Is any medical doctor or someone who studied biology before here? Or am I just like, mashallah, right? What is the theory of evolution? The theory of evolution is like the combination of 2 ideas, the random assortment of genes and natural selection. That has nothing to do with whether God exists or it doesn't exist. And it's very interesting. The reason that Christians and Jews have a problem with the theory of evolution is because the Bible tells them that the world is only 5,000 years old. So the time scales necessary for evolution to act out, they don't exist. However, for Muslims, we have no such aqidah that the universe is 5,000 years old. And really, scientific knowledge tells us that it's much older than that. Not just a little bit, like a lot older than that. So that's not a hang-up that we have. But still, why were atheists happy with the theory of evolution? Because the theory of evolution shows a way that living things can change and adapt to the world around them without the need for God helping the process. They happen on their own. Which is what? It's part of the idea. If you don't believe in God, you believe that the dunya just does everything on its own. The dunya does everything on its own. So they were happy with this theory. In fact, Darwin, people don't know this, Darwin, originally he wanted to be a priest. And he wanted to learn about God through studying the creation. Eventually he died as an atheist. He abandoned the belief in God. Why? Because he thought this is this insight that he had with regards to the way that things work. It means maybe things don't need Allah Ta'ala in order to function. That's something that the atheists were very excited about until when? Until another scientific discovery that happened later on, which is known as the Big Bang. What is the Big Bang? It shows us empirically, that the universe has a finite beginning. It didn't exist forever. It actually started at some point in time, approximately 15 billion years ago, and before that there's nothing. What is that? It's a very big disappointment to atheists. It's a very big disappointment to them. So now what do some atheists say? They say, oh, well, maybe the Big Bang happens in cycles, so it expands and it contracts and it happens again and again. Tell me, do you have any proof for that? Can you show it to me? Can I hear it? Can I touch it? No, this is your wrong iman, this is your blind faith, and this is your imaginary friend. As far as we're concerned, what do we say? حَاجَةُ كُلِّ مَخْلُوقٍ لِلصَّانِعِ. Everything in the world of causes and effects requires something to make it happen. And then the atheists ask, well, if everything requires something to make it happen, then what made God happen? What did I say? I said everything in the world of causes and effects. Is Allah Ta'ala bound inside the world of causes and effects? Absolutely not. That's why we say it's so important to understand Allah Ta'ala is not part of the creation. Time, He's not contained inside of time. Space, He's not contained inside of space. Right? When you talk about time and space, people think you're talking about like Star Trek or something like that. What did Tahawi say? Imam Tahawi, Aqidah Tahawi was like a book written like in the 3rd century Hijrah, so more than 1,000 years ago, in pre-modern times. What did he say? He says, Ta'ala an al-hududi wal-ghayati wal-a'da'i wal-arkani wal-adawat la tahwihi al-jihatu sit kasa'ir al-mubtada'at. Allah Ta'ala is exalted. He's above having any limbs like a body like you and I have. He's exalted above needing having any direction or having any extremity or limits. He is exalted above needing anything to hold him up. He is exalted above requiring instruments to do what he needs to do. And he's not contained within the 6 directions, right? Up, down, right, left, front, back. He's not contained inside of the 6 directions like all created things are. We're trapped inside of time and space. This is one of the reasons that all of the other religions will all abandon the belief in God. Why? Because all of them believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as what? As being inside of time and space. That's not God, that's the creation. That means that the creation is bigger than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What do we say is bigger? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And they say then, what's your conception of Allah ta'ala? There's nothing like unto him. You cannot conceive of him with your mind. Someone says, if you cannot conceive of him with your mind, then how do you know anything about Allah ta'ala? What did I say from before? How do you know Allah ta'ala? In the deen of Islam, how do you know Allah ta'ala? With your mind? With something else. With what? With your what? With your heart. Not the physical heart, the spiritual heart. The heart is the part of the ruh where all intentions start from. That's how you're going to know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why not talk about the tasawwuf? Where's Bhai Ahmed, mashallah? Why not talk? Let's talk about the tasawwuf, right? What does the tasawwuf teach a person? Right? Maulana Jalaluddin Rumi said, and these things are all based on the teachings of the Kitab and Sunnah. Anyway, people sometimes like to hear it in a different way, so here goes, right? He says, Chishim bando, lab bando, gosh band, garna bini noore haq barman bakhand. Close your eyes, close your mouth, close your ears. If you do that for long enough, if you don't see the light of Allah Ta'ala, then you can laugh at me and say, this man knows nothing. How do we worship Allah Ta'ala? Month of Ramadan comes, that's like the best worship of Allah Ta'ala. How do we worship Allah Ta'ala? You don't eat anything and you don't drink anything during the day. What are you doing? You're boycotting the dunya. What are you doing? You're boycotting the dunya. Didn't Allah Ta'ala say in his book, وَمَا جَعَلَ اللَّهُ فِي جَوْفِ رَجُلٍ مِّن قَلْبَيْنِ. Allah Ta'ala didn't put 2 hearts in the one chest of the same human being. If you want to feel Allah Ta'ala's presence with the heart, you need to do what? You need to eat less, drink less, talk less. You need to stop looking at the dunya and start looking at the mushaf. You need to what? Clean all of this garbage outside of the heart. It doesn't happen immediately. If you're going to be watching YouTube videos the whole day and you're going to be watching Facebook, Twitter and everything the whole day, and your heart is filled with all of this other stuff, don't be surprised if you're saying, oh, does God exist? It doesn't exist. That same person, you know, it's very interesting because I see the hal of the ummah, the state of the ummah, I get very depressed. I get very depressed sometimes. But you know what? Subhanallah, don't ever underestimate the ummah of Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Those same crazy people, some of them drink alcohol, some of them commit zina, some of them, they even don't pray in the day. When the moon is sighted for Ramadan, you see those people are praying tahajjud. You see what? Those people are in i'tikaf. You see those people are doing what? They cry when they hear the Quran. Some of them don't even understand Arabic. But when they hear the khatam of Quran in Taraweeh at the end of the month, those people, they cry. It's real. Why? Because you push the dunya out and Allah Ta'ala entered inside of the heart. If a person has a problem with Allah's existence, where is it? It's inside the heart. Otherwise, the dunya, rational logic, it's very simple. Nothing exists on its own without someone having created it. If a person believes that that person is the irrational person, let that sit inside of your heart. And if you want to tackle atheism, the easy part is convincing someone that all of this has to come from somewhere. Right? We don't believe in Allah who sits in a chair in the sky. وَلِعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ. That's what the Christians believe. If you go into churches, I've been to the Notre Dame cathedral, the main cathedral of Paris, before the French people turned their back on the belief in God. And there's a big portrait of a man with a beard sitting in a chair in the sky. And this is a portrait of God. A'udhu billah. A'udhu billah. What kind of nonsense is this? You believe he's an old man sitting in a chair in the sky. This is not Allah Ta'ala. This is not the Allah Ta'ala who's described in the book of Allah Ta'ala. This is not the Allah Ta'ala that Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam taught us about. If we believe that was Allah, then we also should disbelieve in Him. What did we say? That the world of causes and effects, time, space, cause and effect, the one who created them is by necessity superior to them, is not affected by them. So to ask, what was there before Allah? Allah created time. There's no such thing as before Allah. To ask, what cause made Allah happen? Allah Ta'ala created time, cause and effect. He's not subject to it. He's superior to it. That's the easy part. You know, really, if you think about the talk that I've gone, it's gone on long enough. Inshallah, Allah Ta'ala reward you for your patience. Inshallah, with Jannah, it's gone on long enough. Really, if you think about it, that part, the rational proof for the existence of Allah Ta'ala, it would have taken maybe 5 minutes maximum for me to explain. Right? That's the easy part. What's the hard part? The homework assignment. You know that Allah exists. You know because He cannot not exist. What's the homework assignment? Now you have to stop looking at the dunya. Now you have to stop listening to it. Now you have to stop. Eating and drinking it. Right? All of these things. What is it? Because Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam described the inroads to the heart as what? They're the senses: seeing, smelling, tasting, touching, hearing. Right? And what? The thing that your tongue says. Right? Because we think when we're talking that the speech is going outward. But you know, like email, you carbon copy someone's CC on an email, right? There's a CC going inside as well, everything you say. You have to stop speaking so much. You have to do what? You have to be careful what you eat. Make dua for Jakim every day. All of us should make dua for Jakim every day. Why? Because they're trying to make sure what goes inside the stomach is not going to kill the heart. But even then, halal food is like medicine, haram food is like poison. What is poison? Every amount, large or small, is harmful for you. What is medicine? Imagine if I have a headache, if I take 2 Panadols, will it help? Probably. So if 2 Panadols will help, what if I take 200? It's not going to help you 100 times the amount. It's going to kill you. Halal is what? It's like medicine. You have to take it in the right dose, otherwise it's also going to kill you. It also will become a poison. What do you have to do? A person has to be careful what they do with their private parts. Why? Because that affects the heart so much. That's the homework assignment. That's not an easy task. And there's a lot of discussion with regards to that as well. We have this program on Saturday, right? Where is it? What's the venue going to be? Huh? Nurun ala Nur Bookshop. Does anyone know where that is? If you don't, maybe we can share the address or whatever. That's going to be not on the topic of Aqidah, it's going to be on the topic of Tazkiyah, of Ihsan, of Tasawwuf, talking about how a person can get the heart connected with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala so that the heart doesn't command the aql to believe something stupid like Allah ta'ala doesn't exist, right? Our forefathers were intelligent people. Wallahi, they were very smart people. Our libraries are filled with books in an age where people in Europe didn't know how to read and write. Even their kings didn't know how to read and write. The books, so many books our ulama wrote, maybe less than 10% of them have even been published. Most of them are in manuscript form. People loved books so much that the kings used to pay the ulama the weight of the book in gold in order to write it because they had so much love for knowledge. They were very intelligent people. Don't fall into this stupidity. The smart people in the ummah, what did they used to say? The dumb people in the ummah now, what do they say? They say, I wonder, does God exist? The smart people in the ummah used to say, I know God exists because how can anything exist without Him? I wonder, this dunya, does it exist or not? And don't get me wrong. When they say dunya, I say, Shaykh, you also have to pay your bills. You also eat and drink. You don't fly around and eat light. What are you talking so much bad about the dunya? What is the dunya? The dunya is not physical things. Allah created all of this. All of His creation of Allah Ta'ala. Every single part of it, you can look at it and it reminds you that it didn't come from nowhere. Allah Ta'ala made it. مَا خَلَقْتَ هَذَا بَاطِلًا. Right? What is the dunya though? Once you're eating how much you need to eat, once all of your needs are fulfilled, once your wife is happy, your children are happy, your family is happy, then what? A person says, oh, Toyota is nice, but I want a Mercedes. That's dunya. Oh, this house, 2-story house is nice, but how nice would it be to have 4 stories? That's what? Dunya. That, oh, mashallah, I'm wearing, by Allah's fadl, I'm wearing a $300 suit. Wouldn't it be nice to be wearing a $30,000 suit? That's what? It's dunya. That's what when I mean dunya, that's what we're talking about. That you have to displace that. You have to kick that out of your heart. The part of the material world that you use to make Allah happy, that you pay your zakat, you pay your sadaqah, you feed your wife, you feed your children, you take care of your children, take care of the poor. That's not dunya, that's part of the deen. That's something Allah Ta'ala loves. Everything after that, as little as you can take from it, Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala give us tawfiq. Why? Because we're afraid that it should not displace Allah Ta'ala in the heart. And Yawm al-Qiyamah is what? Yawma la yanfa'u malun wa la banuna illa man atallaha biqalbin salim. It's the day that money and progeny don't benefit somebody. The only thing that benefits somebody is that heart. If you kill the heart with dunya, how are you going to ask Allah for Jannah afterward? That's the homework assignment. Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala give all of us tawfiq. Maybe there are many people in the crowd that are actually better at that than I am, so you can ask them as well. Wa sallallahu ta'ala ala rasulihi Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in.